Hi, everybody. Welcome. Joining me today is Amanda Nelson here, and she is a MagnaWave practitioner. By the way, I'm Elaine Pauly. I'm the president of MagnaWave. In case you don't know, we are talking all things PMF. We're going to sprinkle in some red light. But I met Amanda recently. We started talking, and she has something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is dynamic PMF or movement and using a PMF machine. I do this on myself, and I think it's very interesting because Amanda has some really cool stuff. So, Amanda, tell us about who you are, when you got started with PMF.
So I have been competing in dog agility for just over 30 years, something like that. And along with that, I took an extreme interest in massage, rehabilitation, fitness, all that sort of stuff for dogs to just try to keep them as fit and as healthy and injury free as I possibly can. I honestly don't remember the year, but it was many years ago. And I remember thinking back to it as at a championships event. And this person showed up with this machine and these loops, and I had a booth doing massage. And I remember just watching her like, what? I don't understand that. And trying to figure out like what this big machine is. She was rolling in and out. And this has probably been at least 10-ish years. Like it's been a long time. And I kind of slowly, started learning about it a little bit and that sort of thing. And then my older dog, who's now retired, got injured, and a friend of mine has a MagnaWave machine. And she did some treatments on her, did some treatments on myself for my really bad headaches. And I'm like, this is amazing. I need all of it. And so I just kind of went into a massive deep dive of how can this help what I'm currently doing? What's it going to do for my dogs? And that just led me into MagnaWave and PEMF, and then bringing it into my massage, bringing it into what I was already doing, and seeing the results first when I first started with it with myself and my dogs, and then now pushing it out to my clients and the people I see at trials and all that sort of stuff, and working with it with the massage and the movement stuff I was already doing. I think it's absolutely amazing. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about me, I guess.
Well, that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you ended up joining the MagnaWave family and being part, because I think one of my favorite things is learning from you all, like learning from the practitioners, because I feel like there's just always so much more that we can all teach each other and learn. So especially that's why I started MagnaCon, because that's what I want. I want us to all interact. So I appreciate you doing this with me today. Just so everybody who's watching, please comment and ask your questions. We are going to go through several different guidelines, and Amanda's going to show us how she uses movement and her MagnaWave PMF machine on dogs and small animals. And so this is really interesting. I'm really excited for her to show us that. But I'm also going to do a giveaway at the end today. So the more you interact, the more you ask questions, that's going to help you win something. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I haven't quite decided. That's the fun of it. Let's give something fun away. But if you would, please comment, ask questions, and then at the end of your question, write your name. That's very important, because sometimes if we're not directly friends on the social media platform, I can't see your name. So first of all, again, thank you so much for joining us, Amanda. Why don't I'm going to say hi. Hi, Hazel. Hi, Christy. Hi, Patty. I just like saying hi to everybody. Hi, Katie. Hi, Robin. Okay, we got people in Michigan watching, Amanda.
Oh,
We've
awesome.
we got people from all over the place watching. So yay, hi, Tanya. Okay, so let's get started. You did 4 videos for us today, and you talked a little bit. I think what amazed me the most, first of all, that I noticed with dynamic PMF and movement, is that whenever I would have a hard case, like I was working with a human or working with myself, when they did their physical therapy movements with PMF, the results were so much better. But getting a dog to move for me is like,
Yes.
what? How are you going to do that and keep the coil on? Like, what exactly are you doing? So maybe you could just start with like, why you started doing this, and what was the first one what was the first time you did it? What's your first step here to start this process?
So I've been doing dynamic movement, or kind of my take on it, for years with my massage. And so if I was kind of working on the dog, massaging the dog, and I just had this area that it wasn't responding well, or the dog's really tight, I would sit and do those kind of active movements. I would sit and do a little bit of traction and things like that to try to help the area. Once I got into doing it like with PMF, I really wanted to incorporate the PMF with the movement and see, what I could do with it. So the biggest thing that I like to do first, it was a lot of trial and error, just like what you're saying, like how to keep the loop on, how to move it, how to make the dog move and not everything go wild. A lot of which I'll have a couple of videos on that. A lot of the movement, even when I do it in massage, is passive. So dog is laying on their side or they're standing, depending on where they're comfortable. And I've got the limb with either the loop or the paddle, or if they're laying on a mat, and I am the one moving it. And then also in some of the videos we'll have today is me helping them move, which basically is, a treat, and I'm sitting there luring them into a sit or a down or a stand or all of these things. So when I initially kind of started playing with it, I was actually using my old dog, who's long retired. She's 13, but she has some very severe elbow issues, and that's why she retired. So I was first kind of doing it with her because nothing was really helping. Right? Like the massage was helping, but I wasn't seeing what I wanted. So she was kind of the first one that I was kind of messing with it. Right. And so I would lay her down. She likes the loop the best. And so I'd put the loop kind of over her elbow, and then I would just sit there and gently, Yep. I would do that. Or the butterfly, I would just put the butterfly right over that joint and kind of, and just, clamp it right on there. Okay. And then just kind of sit and start the movements. And what I noticed is if I would put, like, say, the large loop on or the butterfly or whatever, is maybe there wasn't any feedback, right? I'm not getting any feedback, but then I would, contract or extend those muscles, and now I have feedback, right? And so I was sitting there kind of messing with it, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And I know this sounds like exaggerated or, oh, it's a miracle, but I will say, like, she has, since she retired and had all these ligament issues and muscle issues in her forelimb, I did about 2 weeks of this, probably like 3 sessions a week, right? So 6 sessions. She was able to run through the yard, no little hitch in her get along. Like, she looked amazing. She was still injured, obviously. It's not curing that, but her inflammation, the pain, was decreased in ways I hadn't been able to achieve before. And I had been doing PMF on her, and it definitely helped. But adding that where the pulse is moving differently through the muscles as they, extend, as they contract, I think really added a whole nother level onto it, if you know what I mean. So I think it's amazing. And so I've used it now with all my dogs and with clients who want to sit and, as I'm kind of figuring out exactly what I want. And I've developed kind of this little protocols, I guess, of what, I do with each dog. And so as you'll see in like the videos, when we go through those, you'll see where I'm doing passive movement and I'm moving their leg, or they're the ones moving, which is most often sits, downs, stands. But you'll see it in the video. You'll see how the dogs react differently to where, like, I'm getting them ready, right? And I'll put the loop on, or I've got the paddle in some of those videos. You'll see that, they're just kind of standing there doing whatever. And I'll ask for a sit, and you can almost see the difference in the dog, like how they're reacting to it, So I love it.
Okay, so we got a question. I'm going to show it here. So this is Christy, and Christy, I'm just going to make this very clear. When the loop is on the area, she is saying you like to move the limb at the same time, not just let them lay still and relax. Exactly.
Yes.
So I think that needs to be very clear for everyone that that's what she's doing. You can do a treatment or a session on a dog with them laying still and relaxing. That's fine. Yeah. But
Yep.
a lot of times, like what she was saying, is that you may find where you get some results, but you're not getting what you really want out of it. Or you may be used to treating the animal for a while, working with the animal for a long period of time, and maybe you're not seeing the same improvement. And that's when you want to add these things in. So do you want to go ahead and start with, maybe we could play the first video, the passive limb movement?
Yeah. Yeah. The number one. Yeah. Let's do that.
Let's do that. Tony, will you go ahead and play that for us? That is amazing. That is amazing. I loved it. I loved everything about that. So you called that one passive limb movement. And so walk us through a little bit of A, how long would you do that for? And B, what exactly the thought process was behind the movements that you did?
So as far as session length, it depends on the dog, and kind of what I'm aiming for, what I want to work with. With that particular dog, that's my young dog, Wally. He doesn't have any like specific physical issues. So like for him, I'm doing it for a general, we have a bunch of competitions coming up next month, and I like to do this, in between, after all the things. For his sessions, I would say they generally last 10 to 15 minutes. What I have really found, especially with movement and adding the PMF together, is that the animal really tells you when they're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I found, like with him, it's usually about 10 to 15 minutes with him. With my other dog, with Allie, she has very close to a CCL, which is a torn cruciate ligament. So she's very close to that. She didn't have to have surgery, but it's like, one run in the yard away from permanently injuring that. So I'm very cautious with her. But when it comes to doing dynamic movement with her, which she's in one of these videos, you will see that I'll do a couple like sit and stands, and then she doesn't want to anymore, right? Because it's adding a little bit too much pressure. She's getting a little tired. So like for her, I might do dynamic movement, a couple of sit to downs, or like that passive leg movement, and then just let the loop lay on her, right? So her session might be the same 15 minutes, but maybe Wally is moving the whole 15 minutes and I'm doing all that movement. Whereas her, it's starting to maybe strain her a little bit because she has a previous injury or what may have you. And then I'll talk at length also about Trip, that I don't think I included before and after videos, but I can post them into the group or something. He pulled a muscle in his back. And so I've been using this movement with PMF and the red light. And again, no exaggeration, within 4 weeks, he went from unable to go up the stairs, unable to jump on the couch, to now he launches onto the couch. And I try to stop him, but he wants, and that I firmly believe is because of stacking all these different modalities together helps with all that, right? So there's a long-winded answer to most of my sessions, I would say, are around the 15-minute mark if I'm just doing movement and PMF. A lot of times if I'm working a show, I'm doing this in combination with some of my massage, so the sessions could go up to 30 minutes, but a lot of that is also with some fascial work and massage and things like that as well.
So you had the dog's leg through the circle, and you did some back and forth motions.
Yep.
And then you did some stretching out, and then I saw you like massage the paw area too. What was that?
So when I'm working, so I guess I get ahead of myself, so you have to keep me in line. I want to move their limb in the plane, right? So you never want to, like you saw me, I was just moving his limb back and forth, right? I'm never like putting it in unnatural angles. So when you're working with passive movement, you're always keeping the joint, keeping the whole limb in the plane of the body. So you saw me go forward, I went back. And when I'm doing it, it's not a static stretch, right? It's just moving forward, moving back. Whereas a static stretch, you're going to take the limb up to resistance and hold to lengthen the muscle. And that's great with PMF as well. But for this particular thing, you're wanting movement. And then I took his shoulder, right? And I'm moving it in like little circles. So I go clockwise, counterclockwise, just moving that in little shoulders, taking his elbow, moving that. When I went down to his paw, I'm taking his paw and doing the same thing. Like I'm flexing and extending his ankle. And then I take his toes, and you can flex and extend or do like little circles. I love doing little circles. A lot of times with my clients that come up, they'll be like, what can I do at home? And a really cool thing, as silly as it sounds at home, and you again add this with PMF, is take their leg, always keeping their joints in plane, and do like the ABCs, right? So you're moving their limb and you're helping kind of, I call it opening the joints, but it's not really doing that, obviously, but it's getting fluidity in the muscle and in the joints. So that's what I was doing with his little paw, was just kind of sitting there, getting it to work, getting it, to move, right?
Okay, great. So we did have a couple questions. I'm going to just quickly answer. Someone asked about massage. Do you have to be a massage therapist to do this? All of that depends on the state that you are in, or the area that you live. So if you are wanting to get into business to do PMF or ad, and you want to market yourself, you just need to look at what the regulations are by your state. Now, in terms of working on your own animal, no. Do you? Absolutely not. I have my own dog. I did this with my dog, very similar situations, and did the movement and anything. That's fine to help to get a machine and work on your own animal. But in terms of marketing, if you want to be marketing something like this, please look at your own state regulations. The Association of PMF Professionals is a great resource for that. If you are not a member of the AOPP, I know that, Amanda, you've done work with them. Please do go check them out. PEMFprofessionals.com. Lauren is fantastic. The whole team over there is great. MagnaWave is a board member with them, and that's where you want to go to make sure that they will join them and they will help you. Okay. What machine are you using in these videos? I know we're getting that question a lot.
It's a semi 10. Okay. Yep.
And do you usually start low, and then how do you know what setting to put it on for each animal?
So I generally always start low, and then we'll just kind of slowly build up. As far as setting, I gauge it by the animal, right? So like Wally, for instance, I don't think I've ever gone above a 4. Whereas, and then there's like Trip, that I usually run him at about probably a 5.5 or a 6. And as far as what determines the intensity, a lot of it is I read the dog as to what works. And if they are having like a little bit, of the muscle, like they're, the jumping, the pulsing, all sort of stuff. I don't want it to just be like pulsing, like their whole body is, I just want, if they're going to give me feedback like that, that's good. I like the feedback, but I want to keep it low, right? So as soon as I come up to a setting and they're giving that feedback, if I maybe go up another half notch and now they're like, I want to go back down.
Yeah, especially with small animals, right? Especially with small animals, like larger animals like cows and horses and all of that, you're going to see a lot more movement because there's a lot more tissue. But when it comes to small animals, I am with you 100%. You don't need as much movement. You are going to get it. You're going to see it in the areas where there's inflammation, where there's that sensitivity. You're going to see it even on a low setting. And for anybody who's new to PMF or to MagnaWave, that faster clicking, that is a lower setting. The slower, done. That is a higher setting. So you'll see in most of her videos, she's on a fairly low setting. It's pretty fast clicking. That's why I recommend, if you are doing small animals, you don't need a giant machine unless you are doing like tons and tons of animals. There are veterinarians out there who they are doing large animals, small animals. They want to have a very flexible machine and they want to do a lot of animals in a day. That's when you would go there. But if you are treating just small animals, doing 15-minute sessions a day, a semi 10 is chef's kiss.
Is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. I love my semi-10.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So that was passive limb movement. So let's go to the second video. We got passive back movement with weight balance. So tell me, why don't you show us this one and then we'll have Amanda explain it.
Perfect.
Now, Tony, I don't know if you could do this or not, but is there any way to play that video and allow her to speak over it a little bit, because, or even leave us up and have that in the screen? There's Tony. Maybe he can make it happen for us. If you can, that'd be great. I don't know for sure, but if we could show that video at all, I think it would be great. So I noticed that you were rocking the dog back and forth. So explain that.
So that's Trip. That's the dog that I was talking about earlier. Has a back, or he pulled a muscle in his back. So when you're working with the back, you know, in the previous video, like with Wally, you can take that limb, you can move it around, you can do all the things. With the back, obviously, you can't do the same stuff, right? You can use their head, and I believe one of the next the next video shows it with a treat. You know, you can work their neck and kind of do motions. When it comes to the back, what I was doing there is I have the large loop over his back, and I'm just slowly kind of rocking him back and forth, which again, we're contracting and expanding the muscles, right? Or flexing and extending, right? As I rock him back and forth. You also see me put my hand under him and very gently, like you don't want to like lift him, but very gently, just kind of looking for that little bit of lift that he's kind of lifting. Wally is like super ticklish, so I can even just take my finger and just like kind of scratch him under his belly, and he'll contract his belly up, but then it's flexing up his spine. That is all what I do to help with the back movements, right? So like for Trip, to help with that injury he had, doing those back movements, when he first got injured, I think I was doing it probably every other day, that exact protocol, loop over it, back, and I'm just very gently, because injury or not, you don't want to like jerk them back and forth, but just a very gentle sway and lift to kind of help them move the muscles in the back. And then because I'm doing it on video, I'm not, I'm focusing more on hoping to keep everything in the video, but you can move that loop. So like I would put the loop on maybe where it is in the video, rock him a couple times, take that loop, move it a little, rock him a couple times, move it again. Or if you're using the paddle, and kind of move your attachment as you're doing also those movements, right? To kind of see what feedback you're going to be getting.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's amazing. So you usually, you do this with, we have a question from Hazel. Do you move other body parts that could be affected by the injury or soreness also? So like if they're compensating on the other side, so if you have the energy in one side, do you, the injury, do you do the other side as well with the movement?
Yes. And actually, if you watch that video, you can tell when I do a weight balance too. That's where I pick his feet up, right? So I'm picking his feet up, which again, you're moving the tissue, letting the pulse go through a different way. But what it's also doing is it's asking him to contract some of his muscles as he tries to kind of balance. But if you watch as I'm doing that weight exercise, I believe it would have been his left and right. So it would have his right front and then his left rear were very unstable. And that reacts back to the pull he had in his back, right? So working, not just focusing on, okay, here's the pulled muscle in his back, but now because of the compensation and with limbs, it's usually at a diagonal. So like now he's compensating on that. So we want to make sure and work those two limbs that he's compensating on, as well as the two that he's not, right? So it becomes like a whole thing. Whenever my dogs are injured, let's say it's their right rear, I'm going to look at the other limbs as well, because there's going to be compensation. So you want to address the whole 9 yards. You want to move everything, not just hyper focus on here. They have this injury. You want to look at the whole animal and go, okay, they have this injury in their right rear. They're going to compensate. So I need to really look at the left front as well and focus on that, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something, especially in horses, that people overlook a lot. But I think too, I mean, I guess I just really didn't think about it as much in small animals. I mean, it really is. And we're getting a lot of questions about time. And I know that you had said about 15 minutes. So when you say 15 minutes, is that the whole body? So you're kind of moving like 2 minutes, like moving around every 60 to 90 seconds, moving the coil and doing a movement.
Yep. Even like that. So like Trip, like I said, has that pulled muscle in his back. I still work all of him. I might focus. So if I'm doing a 15-minute session, maybe a full 8 minutes of it are focused in on that pulled muscle area, but then I still spread the last bit of my session out doing all of him, because he's going to compensate somewhere, right? And so I don't want to just only, take the paddle, take everything, boom, right there on his back, because it's going to spread. Like if my right or left or whatever this is hurts, you're going to compensate. It's going to come up your neck. It's going to go down your back. And so I want to focus on making sure the whole animal is worked. And sometimes I have, it's actually a horse that I do this with, do a lot of dynamic movement with him. And he can't tolerate like a full 15 minutes of PMF, right? Like he's very sensitive. So I might do, say, 4 minutes on his right rear. And then I'll turn it off and I'll sit and do like some massage, some fascial work, and then another 4 minutes on his left rear. And we split it up by doing the PMF and dynamic, and just split that session into chunks of to what works, for the animal. So it doesn't have to be all together. You can kind of move it around. With Trip, I split it up a lot in the fact I would do, say, 5 to 8 minutes of PMF on his back, working that, and then I would turn it off and do the LZR for a minute and work his back. That piece of the session's done, put the PMF on, and maybe don't do any movement, and that sits on for a couple of minutes, and now I'll do some passive limb. Like it doesn't have to be in a set 1, 2, 3. You can kind of make it fluid as to what works for the animal and what you're trying to achieve, especially bringing in the LZR. I really love bringing that in, like either the beginning of the session to kind of get things warmed up, like put the PMF on, get them into the session, do an LZR for a minute, and then go into some movement with the PMF and just kind of stack those things together. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. And I think that a couple things with the questions that we're getting, if you are wondering about maintenance sessions and you are wondering about how often, a couple things that I want to say is, if you have not already, please take our certification program, rewatch it, come here for hands-on training, watch every single one of these videos, office hours, get in the certified group, because 100% of knowing what she knows is confidence. It's doing it. So a lot of times people overthink this and they're like, oh, yada, yada. Put it on a low setting. Just start, do the videos, educate yourself. You will learn to read the animal and learn to really understand your own patterns and the way that you are going to do it. So please, get that confidence, because I think that a lot of times we just don't do because we're not as confident. So a lot of that is looking at the animal and really understanding the animal. And I think this is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I will agree with you though. The movement with the LZR, with like the PMF, is just mind blowing. And
it's amazing.
I love that you brought up the horses, because, this year, this is kind of our theme, movement and PMF. Like, I really want to educate people on this. And so if you are a MagnaWave certified practitioner, we are going to go much more in depth with this stuff over the rest of the year for our continuing education credits. We are going to be doing a lot more with horses as well. So it's exciting stuff. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So you want to watch the third video. This is sit down with neck movements. And when you say sit down, this is going to be you actually getting them to sit.
Yep. So where the previous videos have all been passive, where I am moving the dog, I believe, in this video with neck movements. Yeah. So this one is I have a treat and I'm asking the dog for a sit. I'm asking for a stand. So they're the ones doing it. And then you'll see me do neck movements, which is the same thing. I take that treat and I'm asking them to do it. You can passively move their neck, but I found most dogs, unless they're very used to massage or chiro or things like that, as soon as you kind of grab a dog's neck and you try to move them, they want to resist. And if you're doing any sort of passive movement and your dog locks and is like, nope, I don't like it, you don't want to force it. It's counteracting everything you're trying to do. So if you have a dog that's maybe super sensitive about their legs, or they don't want their neck touched, then you want to kind of think outside the box and figure out a way that you can get that movement without them wanting to just lock up, right? So yeah.
Great. Awesome. All right, so let's watch. This is sit down with neck movements. This is number 3.
Yep.
That was cool. That was cool. So you had like a treat, like a stick, and you were kind of, so
Yep.
that was great. Okay, so walk us through that a little bit. Like you did two different ways of getting the dog to move, and you had the Zoom paddle.
Yep. So for that particular one, I use the Zoom paddle, and you kind of have to figure out what you like as far as which attachment to use and like what feels good to you. So like some dogs and some movements, I use the large loop, and like for her, she's not a fan of the large loop. Like I don't, for whatever, she's kind of a weird dog. She likes the paddle. Like she likes that it's contact and I can move with her. So for her, I'm always using the paddle for the most part. So the neck movements you saw, I'm raising, lowering. I will critique myself a little bit in that you need to still with the neck, you're keeping them in the plane. If I wasn't trying to do the video, I would move myself a little bit more so that you're keeping her neck, within its plane. I was kind of wonky a couple times, but yeah, I have a treat. It's like a little stick thing, and I'm just luring her neck back and forth, up, down. And then what I'm asking for, I call them sit downs, down to stands. A lot of fitness and rehab people use it. Is you always start at a stand. So like I lure her up into a stand, and then I push her into a down, and I lure her up into a stand again. I think in the next video, you'll see me do a sit. And that one, I think I did one or two sits. But I'm asking, she's giving me that movement, and I just kind of move the paddle with her. And you can see like one time, I bring her into a stand, paddles on her shoulder. Next time she's in a down, and I just run it down to her stifle. She's the one that has the cruciate issue. So then I'll bring it up. I have the paddle down on her stifle. So not only like it's a little bit of a twofold thing when you're doing these down to stands and things like that, is you're helping with their fitness, you're helping keep them in shape, but also adding the PMF then adds a whole nother level, because, as we all know, it's increasing blood flow, and it's helping her as she's doing these movements. The pulse is able to move through that tissue differently. It's keeping her from getting super sore. Like it's the whole gambit of things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I can imagine with my dog would have been like the Kong thing with peanut butter in it. Like I could see like
Yes.
it like she would have done all of that with that and just be looking at it at the same time. So
Yep.
I guess it's really
Yep.
whatever your animal is going to respond to and what's easy. And it's not gonna, like you said, it's not gonna be perfect every single time, but that movement and the way that you did that, you really could with some practice figure it out. We did have a question from Dee. She asked, sometimes she goes, how do you manage a really hyper dog when you're working with them? Sometimes they are just bursting with energy. They're athletes. Do you have some trick of the trade you can share?
So it kind of depends on the dog. As far as some dogs, if they're super hyper, they're excited, like, oh, it's a person, they're touching me, and they're, they're just excited. I will tend to start the session with just put a loop on them or the paddle, or if you have a mat, let them lay on the mat and just chill for a couple of minutes. Like let them just kind of get into just chill for a minute or two, and then start doing the movement. So, and as far as when you have like really hyper and trying to figure out kind of what works, when it comes to luring with food, some dogs get just over the top, like what I was doing with her, like with a treat. I cannot do that with Trip. Like it just sends him into this whole like, oh my gosh, there's food. But what Elaine just said is get a lick mat and put some like doggy peanut butter on it, some cream cheese, whatever, and you can hold the lick mat and sit and move them. The lick mat promotes calmness anyway. Like it kind of focuses their attention into, let me sit here and lick this thing, and it'll help kind of calm them down a little bit. And if you get, there's small ones that kind of like fit in your hand like this, you can just hold it and you just take them through the movements, and they're just sitting there licking it the whole time. That's the best way I've found for dogs who are just overly just excited, is to just, before you start the session with, oh, you're really excited, here, I'm going to move you a bunch, which just raises the excitement levels. Like let them just sit there and acclimate to, especially if you're working a show, you're at someone's house or they've come to you, is like, let them just acclimate to you, the machine, the whole 9 yards, and then start asking, for some movement beyond that. Right?
Yeah, and I think so. A couple just things that I've done in the past too is if I'm not at a show or something and I know somebody has a really hyper dog, I've asked them to maybe go to the dog park, take a walk, and then bring the actual bed that the dog lays down in with you if you're coming to me. or I'll put the mag energy mat or the coil even under that bed. So like go wear your dog out to where they are tired.
Yep.
And then when you bring them to me, like let's so that they have their comfort area, because dogs are just like people, right? Like it's their
Yep.
space. They're going to lay down more on, they're going to know that that's their bed. They're going to smell it, even if they're in my house or at my work, and they're going to lay down on that. And if the coil's there, that
Yep.
begins that relaxation process, because you just want
Exactly.
to be aware and maybe talk to people beforehand, like, how excited is this dog, and do you have the time to schedule me in a way that you could get them some exercise out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I love that one. So I'm really excited to see the next one. This is the fourth video. It's called Sit Down with Platform. And you said this was a little bit different. How?
So this one, so what I started, in the previous video, you're doing sitting down just with the dog, on the ground, right? I started incorporating with my young dog Wally, because our trialing season, this was back last year. Trialing season starting to come up. I need to get him fit and able to compete here this next coming month. And I do a lot of work with platforms, discs, all that sort of stuff. And as I was doing his little workout, I'm like, I wonder if I could bring this over. So in the next video, you'll see it's just a foam like step pad. It's about 2 inches thick, I think. And I'm doing the same sitting downs, but now I've got like his back feet raised up, right? So now his back feet are on the mat or on the pad, front feet are on the ground, and I'm doing the same motions. But what this does is, by raising up their rear end, or if you put it under their front end, what this is doing is it's activating different muscles. He's contracting different muscles by standing on that pad, and then you're contracting different muscles for the sit and the down with the elevation, which again, now when you put the PMF with it, you're just moving it again through the tissues in a little bit of a different way that can give you different feedback and different work, different help. And with him, like doing that, like doing some fitness and then bringing in a little bit of PMF with his fitness session, I personally think has helped him increase his fitness level, I guess, the way to say it, because I can do these reps and I don't see him, maybe as sore afterwards. He recovers better. I'm able to do more of these fitness sessions during a week because of adding the PMF with it. So
that's great. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this. So I'm excited. So let's play number 4, Sit Down with Platform. Yes. Wow, that was so cool. So Katie Battis had asked earlier about using foam blocks. So that's basically what you're doing there. So and this is something that you use to work him out, right? Pretty regularly, and adding in PMF.
Yep. And you can do it like that particular video was, she has her back feet on the mat, front feet on the ground. You can then switch it, put their front feet on the mat, back feet on the ground. You switch it, you can do either one of those. Eventually you can get to where you have maybe their front feet on a mat and their back feet on, say, an unstable, like a disc that's air filled, so again, you're activating different muscles. What I found by adding in the mats, so like with her, she was a very good example for someone, I believe, asked earlier about, like how long and how to judge the session. If you watch this recording, watch that video again, you can see her starting to say, I'm done. Right. And she's the one that has the stifle issues. So you can see like her form gets a little, it's not quite as good as at the start of the video. She's not wanting to stand as much, right? And that's a really good example of a dog who's like, okay, I'm good now, right? So like for her, if that was a client I was working on, I would then let her lay down and just let the loop or the paddle just sit on her, right? And be done with the movements for that particular moment. But adding the foam pads, what I've found is twofold. One is, like I said earlier, it will activate different muscles. You're going to have different contractions by having an elevated surface, whether it's the rear end up or the front end up. You're going to have different reactions in the muscles. What I have also noticed is just in general doing, like Allie needs fitness just because even though she's retired and injured, I don't want her muscles to atrophy and all that sort of stuff, right? And I wish I had videos of it, but when I would do these sort of fitness exercises with her, because of that ligament injury, I could maybe only do 3 or 4 reps of a complete like down, stand, right? So each one would be a rep, 4 maybe before she was getting sore and it would hurt. Adding the PMF into it, I think because it's helping with the inflammation, because it's helping, increase her blood flow. I now like a session with her, which she does fitness work probably like twice a week of that sort of stuff. When I add the PMF into it, she can now do between 6 to 8 reps and be just fine. Adding that with it. And the same with Wally, adding that in, and he's my main competition dog now, adding that in during their workout sessions beyond just the healing of having PMF on them is that I found it has elevated their workout sessions. It's made them recover from them better. It's made them, I think, get stronger, faster. Their muscle tone is so much better just by adding that into those sessions, right? I think it's a twofold thing. It's absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing. I mean, I just think that is such a cool thing. I know just the way that you're doing it, and I think the results with the working, it's pairing almost working out with doing it. And I've talked about this before, how I use my machine while I'm riding on my Peloton. And I actually saw a boxer the other day who had a PMF machine, was wearing the wings like this and doing his boxing. He was doing his movements, which was so cool. So like as we develop these guidelines and talk about this, I just love the idea of doing this with small animals. And I wish I would have been more like when my dog was alive. She lived to be almost 19 years old, 18 years old. I worked with her so much with the PMF and the LZR, and I just wish I would have added some of this, like had this ability. So this is really great that you're sharing this with everyone. We do have a question from Hazel. She says, can you overdo the movements during a session?
Yes. And that's back to reading your animal, right? So like Wally is 4 years old. He's fit. He's healthy. For him, doing like, say, those down to stands, his reps are usually land between 8 and 10, right? And he's feeling frisky about it. With Allie, she's 10 years old. She's retired. She's got a little winter weight. Her reps land around 5, right? So when it comes to those sort of movements where you're actively like asking the dog for those down to stands, sit to stands, not only are you getting the dynamic movement of moving the dog, but it is asking for them to do fitness. Even if you're not adding a foam pad, you're just having it on the ground. It's no different than asking me to do 10 squats, right? It's the same. You're working those muscles. So if you're looking to bring this dynamic movement in and you don't want to overdo the movements, you've got a dog maybe that has an injury or what may have you, you're better off to really focus on doing the passive movements where you're not going to be tiring the dog out with the down to stands, and do, like, say, if you like Allie, I would do maybe 3 or 4 of the down to stands and then let her lay down and do passive movements. So you're still getting all that dynamic movement you want in a session, but you don't want to overdo it. The key thing is to really listen to the animal, is to not get kind of these blinders on of, okay, the protocol says I do exactly 5 reps, and then I switch sides and I do exactly 5 reps. If you do 2 reps and you're looking at this animal going, they don't want to, either they're locking up or they're nervous or they're tired, whatever it may be, you want to be able to always be focusing back on the animal or the person, right? And not get kind of locked into, but this is what the manual says,
Right.
and be in tune with what you're working on, right?
Right, because every body, and when I say body, I mean just physical bodies of animals are different. And so what you may be comfortable with one day, they may not be comfortable with the next day. And we do have another question, if you can make the sensitivity worse by overdoing it. And I think again, that's paying attention to the dog.
Yep. Yep. And if I'm starting, like with my own dogs, obviously, because I live with them, I see them all the time, like I know them. When I'm working with someone I've never seen before, whether it's, at a trial or they've come to see me, I will generally start with the passive movements first. And what that is going to give you is, one, you can get an idea of what the dog feels like. You can get an idea of, okay, I'm moving this leg and he doesn't really seem to like to extend that leg, and gives you kind of a starting point. And then you can maybe ask for one of the down to stands just to kind of see what you're doing. I tend to always err on the side of caution, right? I will always do less as opposed to more. Because if you get to a point where you've done those 10 reps and you look down at the dog or the horse or, whoever you're working on, and they're just exhausted, you've counteracted everything that you've been trying to do. So if you've got like that, an injury or some sensitivity or whatever, you're better to err low, and maybe just do the passive movement to kind of get you going and go from there. Because you can, if you, like Allie, if I were to force her to do 10, 15 reps, like, she is going to be overly sore and hurting the next day because
You pushed her.
gone beyond that level. Yeah.
I mean, that's with anything. So I guess the best way to think about it is, like, if you wouldn't work that dog out anymore, or that dog doesn't want to, you wouldn't make them run, then you wouldn't make them do this. This is just the very same thing. The dog is done. It's done. It's comfortable. It's laying down. It doesn't want to, you're done. Like, so I guess a lot of times I like, when I'm doing a session, especially the first time on an animal, it's like, there's 3 things that can happen. A, you're going to notice that they feel better. They're moving better, whatever. So let's say I just do 15 minutes. B, nothing. You're not going to notice anything. Okay. Or C, what's going to happen is they might seem a little bit sorer. And that's going to tell me so many things. Like, if they're a little bit sore, meaning that we've detoxed them and we've done that, then we know that we need to maybe do a lower setting or do less time, but we need to keep going. You don't want to stop, because that's not the answer.
Nope.
You're working it out. If they get nothing, that means that that you could do a little bit more, right? And you could be a little bit more aggressive. And if they get better, then you're on the right track. So I always prefer to start lower and rather not get anything, or get a better result and kind of figure it out from there, instead of saying, we have people, they'll put it on I did an hour and a half. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No,
please
no.
no.
Like, it's not that you're hurting the animal. It's working out. There's no benefit after a certain period of time. Learn the animal, see what that works for them, and move on. And I think that's why it's so very important to be educated on PMF. That's why we have the certification program. That's why we're doing this today. That's why we have our app. If you have a PMF machine and you are not properly educated, please take the time to join the AOPP. Get a machine from MagnaWave. I don't know. Learn, because it's not just putting the machine on. There's so much more. Wouldn't you agree?
I 100% agree. 100%. I know this is a little bit off, but I see people a lot that they'll get a machine and it's just okay, and they throw a loop on, 15 minutes, bada boom, bada bing, off you go. And there's so much. Even if you're not a massage therapist, you're not doing dynamic movement, none of it. You need to be educated on. It's not just toss a loop on them, like it, or whatever attachment, a blanket, whatever. You need to know what you're looking for, what you're doing, and what setting is that, and just like you said, what is this too much? Is this not enough? Did I see a result? And how to proceed from that? Where to go from learning about, okay, this is not enough. That doesn't just mean crank the machine up. That could mean this isn't enough. Maybe I need to move it here. Maybe I need to change the attachment. Like it's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing. And I think that, first of all, not all PMF is created equal, and not all PMF practitioners are created equal. So make sure that if you are looking to start doing this and find a practitioner, that they are educated and they know what they're talking about, and they're not practicing medicine, because really good PMF practitioners, they know how to talk to medical professionals in a way where it's just like an x-ray tech. An x-ray tech knows how to read that machine, and they know how to get to see what's going on and give that information to the proper doctor. And that's exactly what a right PMF practitioner can do. They are not afraid to explain what they're seeing to a vet, who can then use that information to do better by your animal. So make sure, if you are getting into this, that you ask those questions, because cheaper pricing and cheaper is not better. You want someone who knows what they're doing, and they are continuing education. So I really do appreciate that. I got one question here. I'm going to show it on the screen. Amanda, I'm a canine fitness and conditioning trainer. Most of my clients' dogs do strength training 3 to 4 times a week. How would you start incorporating the MagnaWave? Would you start 1 day a week or more?
So I mean, if you're already doing 3 to 4 times a week, my view on adding it, if you're just adding it into your fitness program and they have a machine, or they have you and you're able to do it with every session, there obviously are going to be some exercises that you can't do it on, right? Like you're doing like Cavalettis, things like that, where you're not going to have, the loop's not going to stay on, or it's going to, hinder what they're doing. But if you're doing like that, like platform work, instability work, all that sort of stuff, and you can have an attachment on in some way, I personally would do it every single session. If you've got a dog who's never had PMF or MagnaWave, then you're going to want to start at that 1 time a week. But like my dogs, all obviously, because I have a machine, they're all very used to it. Every time I do a workout with them where I am able to use it, I use it. My thoughts on that are is that if I am using the machine while they're working out, I am addressing a problem before it ever happens, right? So instead of chasing my dog is sore or my dog has inflammation, after a workout or whatever it may have you, by putting the attachment of your choice on there and you're, have it on while they're working, to me, and what I've seen as far as results with my dogs, is that I'm now not chasing a problem, if that makes sense. I'm nipping it right there, right? I put the loop on. Allie, I think, is one of my best examples. I will take that butterfly loop because of her stifle. I will just put it right on there. I can use one of like the Velcro straps to kind of not like cinch it, but kind of hold it so that it's not flying everywhere. And I do her fitness work with that on there because it's lessening the chance of her being sore later, and it's helping that injury. So when I look at adding the PMF to my fitness, if my dog is cool with having it on them, if they know what, PMF MagnaWave is, meaning they've had sessions, you're not just like throwing a loop on and they've never seen it before and never had a session. I personally do it with every fitness session I do. And Wally is doing about three a week. So that fits within that time frame that you're talking. And I guess, I view it as preventative. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Preventative,
it's maintenance,
as opposed to trying to fix.
It's
right?
maintenance. You're allowing the muscle and the body to function at its best during a time where it's under some sort of stress. And that doing that is amazing. I mean, if the animal recovers better, they're going to have less chance of getting injured. And that's that. I mean, whether you do it with the dynamic movement or you do it after the animal does their workout, just do it, because you're going to see less injury, and less injury means you have a longer living, happier dog, and a longer performing animal. And that's what we want to see. Correct?
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. And we have one more here. I'm going to show you, and then okay, so this is Joy. She's been doing sessions once a week on a big dog. We'll go there. Degenerative myopathy. The owner and I've seen major improvements in his energy and mood, but I'm not seeing much difference in the mobility in his back end. Hold on. It doesn't show it all, so I'll just read it. I've tried different attachments, including the Mag Energy mat, and even a little movement during the sessions. With this condition, maybe mood and energy is all I'm going to be able to improve. Do you have any suggestions?
That one's hard.
I do the LZR.
Yeah, degenerative myopathy. That's hard. That one's hard. And, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a vet, not a doctor, nothing like that. So you always want to make sure that that's included, that your veterinarian is in on everything that's happening with this dog. If I have the vet's approval and all that sort of stuff, and we're working together, I mean, yeah, I would be doing the PMF with some movement, but being very conscious of the movement, that you're not going to make his condition worse, right? Because it's the same thing as that video that we watched with Allie, where her form started getting a little sloppy because she was starting to get a little tired, right? It'd be the same thing with him, is that you don't want to be doing like, here, we're going to do all these sit-to-dit stands, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And now you're fighting yourself, right? So I personally think, if he was my dog and I have, vet and all that, yeah, I would be doing some movements. I would probably do more passive movements than I would do the down to stands, what I was doing in those last videos. I would focus way more on the passive movements, the slight, back movements, things like that. I probably wouldn't do the weight stuff where you pick up a foot. I don't think I would do that. But I would focus pretty hard on passive movement for him, and the LZR. Yeah. I mean, I would be stacking all of that together.
I would think that LZR, just even if you didn't add in any movement, adding in the LZR, like you can rent one, and adding, I mean, I don't know. I think, Amanda, when we first talked, you hadn't been using the LZR that much, and we talked about it, and now you have been using it. Have you seen why I am obsessed with the PMF and the LZR together, the MagnaWave and the LZR together?
Yes, absolutely. And again, not an exaggeration or like a MagnaWave sales pitch, I swear. She sent me that LZR, and I was like, okay, I'll try. And I had it, right? I'm being completely, I had it. I'm like, okay, well, and that was, it was perfect timing. Trip had pulled the muscle in his back. The LZR showed up the next week, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's try that. It was absolutely night and day. Absolutely night and day. I have worked on dogs with muscle pulls. I've dealt with dogs for years with these sort of injuries and never had the results that I had by combining his PMF treatment with that LZR, right? Even not even looking at the dynamic movement aspect of it. But I really think all three played a role. That LZR was life-changing for him. And I started using it on my old dog, Nargles. That's old, deaf, all the things. I like it. Okay. And she, it was night and day. Like, this is 100%. I will tell anybody I was not sold on it initially. And to have it in my hands on a dog who had an injury, and knowing how long that injury should have taken to how long it did take, if you don't have one, you need one. I
can't say enough. And a lot of people are like, well, how do I bill for this? How do I do this? I'm just going to tell you this right now. You don't need to change your pricing. It's going to cost some money, but what I'm going to tell you is your results are going to increase. Your customer base is going to increase. The animals are going to feel better. And when I say that, like this, it works. And I was the same way when my dad first started talking about red light and the LZR. I was like, okay, and we tried. When I say we tried every red light out there, all of them. Okay. And for the time that this takes and the results that you get, and combined with the MagnaWave, these two things together are like a superpower in terms of and if you think about it, it makes sense, because you need electromagnetic energy to survive. That is the Earth's field, the way our cells talk to each other, but you also need light. You need light to survive. And we are taking two basic elements that we need for survival and turning them into a really fantastic way for you to help the body function at its best. And a lot of times you're like, oh, the machine and the light aren't doing anything. The body is. You're giving the body what it needs. And it's amazing. So I'm so glad you like it. I hate to say this, but I told you so. Okay. Oh, it's true. It's true. It's amazing.
It's game changing.
Yeah. And we wouldn't have it. I would not sell it. And I have been approached by literally handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of companies to sell equipment, you all. This is not like people have come to us over and over and over. I have boxes of stuff behind me that is sent for people to, and there's a reason that we don't, and there's a reason that we do sell this. It does, it works, and and that's the whole core mission of this company, right? Is to provide higher quality of wellness and really in a great way. So I'm so glad you like it. We really have so much more to discuss with you because Amanda's going to be working with us. I know that you had said people can reach out. I know that if you're looking to get a machine and work, Amanda's a great resource for you all. Tell them a little bit about the name of your business so they can follow you on social media.
So my business is Fluid Motion Agility, and it's that way across all platforms. So between Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok, it's all Fluid Motion Agility. Through all that, my website is fluidmotionagility.com. So you can find it. Just use that for everything, and that's my name stays the same. So hopefully it's easy for everybody to find it. But and perfect. Yeah, fluidmotionagility.com.
Hey, I put it up. I typed that myself. Thank you. Okay, so while we were talking, so Fluid Motion Agility, fluidmotionagility.com. I think that we should probably, I'm going to just go through a couple questions and we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to give away a prize. So Tony, why don't you guys pick a number back there? Or why don't you pick a number, Amanda? Pick a number.
Just any number?
34. So Tony, if you go through, this is a combined feed in here. It's showing Facebook, I believe YouTube. So if you are counting the comments yourself and you think you're 34, you might not be because it is combined for us. So Tony, if you guys will go through and pick a winner and Slack that over to me, that would be great. In the meantime, I'll tell that what you all won. But first, we did have a couple questions about cancer and PMF. One woman, Christy, asked earlier, she's been working with an animal that does have some cancer, and she was worried about the spread. And I'm going to say this, there have been studies done. We do talk about improving the blood flow or increasing blood flow, but we are never increasing blood flow more than a simple walk or exercise would do. So you are just improving regular blood flow. You are not increasing blood flow that is going to spread an illness. And if anything, what we found is actually oxygenating the blood. What studies have found and research has shown, oxygenation, cancer hates oxygen. And so the more that we can get oxygen into the blood and the more that we can increase those healthy cells, you actually have a better chance. So I would not be worried. Obviously, you want to talk to the vet, okay? Anytime you work in anyone that has any indication, the doctor needs to know what's going on and what modalities you are adding in, okay? That is across the board. But for your sake, I would just do some research. Again, AOPP, PMFprofessionals.com has a ton of research articles. But wouldn't you agree? Like, talk to the vet. We have not seen, that is a misnomer about this spreading in that case. And Dr. Myers actually we did a webinar about that, that we will post that again soon. And then we talked about hyper dogs. We went through that. So I think we have everything. Let me see if we picked a winner. I do want to say, there was some people who asked about, will dynamic movement PMF be more this year for practitioners? Yes. We're going to work with Amanda. We have a lot of exciting stuff. We do have a new product coming out for horses, and that we are going to be using the dynamic movement as well. So I'm super excited about that. So if you are a MagnaWave practitioner, you are required to do your continuing education this year. And a lot of it is going to be about dynamic movement as well as tons of other stuff, because Teresa and Carson in our education department are amazing. But we will be addressing it. Okay. Oh, look, somebody from Australia. Janet says, good morning from Victoria, Australia. Good morning. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's see if we have a winner. Okay, the winner is Suzanne Wheeler. Congratulations, Suzanne Wheeler. Yay. So, Suzanne, I am going to send you an LZR. So, Suzanne, you are getting an LZR. If you already have one, then we will work something else out, put some dollars towards something you may want. So congratulations, Suzanne. Amanda, again, thank you so much. Everyone, please go follow Amanda on social media, Fluid Motion Agility. Check out her website. She's awesome. Join the AOPP. And then what else? Something else. Yes. Oh, Tuesday, the 11th is office hours. My dad, Pat Zemer, and I will be live right here Tuesday at 11 or at noon. Tuesday, April 11th at noon Eastern Standard Time, something like that. Just tune in. We will be there. Congratulations, Suzanne Wheeler. Do you have anything you want to add? Amanda, thank you. Anything you want to add?
No, I mean, just thank you. Thank you for having me on this. This has been absolutely fantastic. I can talk about this sort of stuff all day long. So this is absolutely fantastic. This
awesome.
is great.
And if you are a MagnaWave practitioner, I will be live tomorrow in the certified group. Sometime tomorrow, I'll let you all know and have some new updates on what's going on. Otherwise, thank you guys. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate it. And we will see you guys next on the 11th.
All right.